Hey everybody, what's going on? So, had quite a few views on the Clawback video I put up that I put up a while ago about owning this truck for about a month and my thoughts after a month. And a lot of those views still haven't really changed. I'm still really liking this truck. We'll talk a little bit about my thoughts and stuff on it in this video as well. In case you guys haven't seen that video, you can definitely find it on my channel. But I've done a few changes to the truck. I've got a few more changes coming up, and we'll talk about some of the quick changes I've done. And a lot of these are low cost, if not free, changes you can do that I think makes this a more drivable, just better rig. Now some of these are sort of inherent problems with the truck, but the problem is there is not a huge aftermarket world for fifth scale crawlers. As you can see, this thing's taking up most of my table. I've got the camera back like 4 feet from my table just to get this in view. I mean, basically just for scale purposes, here is a Arma Big Rock 3S 1/10 scale truck. You know what I mean? So there's a 1/10 scale monster truck. Yeah, right there. So if that shows you anything about you know, how big this rig is, it's over 40 inches long, tip to tip from the you know, bumper to bumper. It's a very, very big truck. So what did I do to change? Number one, the best thing you can do if you've got one of these is you can't really change out your wheels and tires. Nobody really makes them. Now, OMGRC, he is actually ordering up some Redcat Rampage monster truck tires, sort of like 5th scale Baja size monster truck tires to go on his. I may actually follow suit if that turns out to look cool. We'll see. These have 23 mil hexes. I know you can get some HPI 24 mil hexes. The only problem is these stagger out about this far, so I don't know if the offset would work. I don't, you know, that would kind of be a little hard. But you know, I'm not too terribly bad with the wheels that come on it. They're a little small for what it is, but you know, it works for now. Now, the first thing I did that I think looks better now, I took this is the spare tire, and I've already flipped it in case I need one, but I'm going to show you guys. So you see this ring right here, this big, now this looks like your big, more like off-road racer kind of beadlock ring that maybe you would see more on like a Can-Am ATV, like a you know, something like that. I think it looks more desert truck, ATV, UTV, off-roadish style beadlock ring, and I didn't like it up front. It just looked too much. And this is not painted red, it's anodized almost red chrome, and I just thought it looked a little cheap. I just didn't really like the way they look. You know, so what I did, I could have painted these, but I still didn't like how big this one was in the front. So what I did was I took these apart, 9 screws out of the front, 9 out of the back, and I actually took, so you can see now, this is the back. So I put the front beadlock ring on the back, and I put the little small beadlock ring in the front. Now this still doesn't interfere with your steering. You still have enough clearance and everything in here. So I actually switched my beadlock rings, and now it looks like this. I think it looks a little nicer, just smaller rings. I think it looks a little more realistic. You know, it's a small thing. You could paint these if you wanted to. I kind of like the way the red does look now that it's a little smaller. Now, if you're going to do this, just mind you, these are a little hard to get back together. You want to make sure you know, you get these on there good. When you take these off, don't really mess with the tire a whole lot. The tire kind of sits in down in a groove. So if you're real careful when you take these off and just flip the wheel over, you should just be able to replace these, no problem. So I think that helped out a lot. Now the second thing I did was I sprayed. Some subscriber told me about this on the video. Was the one thing is these tires are very slick. They don't grip real well. They're not really siped. It's a good tire. It's strong. It's a thick rubber. It's a good quality tire. The foams aren't super, you know, squishy. It's a good setup, but you know, they could really give you some more traction. So one of the things I did was I actually coated the tires in WD-40, and I did that a couple times, and it's definitely helped make them more tacky. Now what I will do probably now is I might use this extra wheel as my guinea pig. Is what I might do is take a razor blade and actually sipe these tires. I might actually take across them, and cut some siping into each one of these. And what siping is basically you take a razor blade and make a little slit, maybe a quarter of the way through each of the lugs. That way, when this comes across a rock and hits, they can open up like fingers, and they can grab a hold. If you look at your tent scale crawlers, the tires are siped. So I might actually sipe these tires and get those to work a little better. So the third thing I did, and I think this is one of the biggest performance upgrades you can do to this truck, and it costs you nothing, is take this spare tire and rear cage that sits right here, get it off the damn truck. Why do I say that? Okay, this tire damn near weighs as much as this body shell does. Now this body shell is pretty thick, but this tire is darn near 2 pounds. These things are super heavy. My X-Max tires are lighter than these. My Baja Max wheel and tire is lighter than this. It's very well built, but it is super, super heavy. And all that weight up here at the top, when you take a turn, especially when you do the mod I'm going to talk about here in a second, it makes this thing really rollover prevalent. Even if you don't do the suspension mod, it makes this thing just want to roll over. And two, you're tugging around an extra couple pounds, and that's drawing the motor down, the battery down, and all that, and it's going to cost you some performance. This will help tremendously, and I think it looks better. I mean, that's just me personally. I didn't really like how this looked, hanging out back here. Whatever, everybody do your own, leave it if you want, but I took mine off. And it definitely helped a lot. So that's the other thing I did. The last thing I did was, we'll take the body shell off and look at the suspension monitor in a second, but if you guys can see, I don't know how well you can see this, but in here, the red hub and the red, almost like the stub axle, and the wheel nut, I painted those black. So, instead of having more of this red color kind of show through, I don't like that on any truck. I paint them on my Traxxas trucks and my Armas and everything else. I blacked those out, so now, it's basically an all black wheel inside, and I think that looks a lot better. In the future, I've seen some videos on YouTube about how to remove paint from Lexan. I may actually try, I want to leave these blacked out like they were tinted, but I actually want to clear the front 3 windows, and I may actually try to do that. Another thing before I pop the body shell I'm going to try to do is I'm going to do some LEDs on this. Once again, OMGRC, he actually took a Gen 8 LED kit for a International Scout Gen 8. He modded it, basically extended the wires to fit this, because it will plug right in. You have to ream some holes in hot glue and stuff, but it's the 16 LED kit will work pretty well for this. I'm going to do something similar, but I think what I'm going to do is I'm either going to get a Traxxas LED control module box, or I'm going to get the Axial controller box, and I may actually just buy a la carte LEDs and build my own. I'm going to take this rack apart up here and maybe try to get this light bar, this faux light bar out. You can put 8 individual LEDs in it. What I'm going to maybe do is actually take it, gut it, and actually put maybe 2 4-inch LEDs or 2 5-inch, because you've got a little over 10 inches up here. I may put stack a couple of light bars in here so they'll be brighter, and then maybe some kind of headlight and tail light buckets and stuff like that, and build an LED kit for it and everything like that, and run it like that. Still doing research on it, not sure what I'm going to do. So let's go ahead and pop the body off. And one other thing here before I do that, guys, if you I don't know if I mentioned this the first video or not. One of the problems I was having with this is you have 2 body clips that go in right here, and they face straight up and down. You can't turn these to make them go side to side. It's kind of a problem. When I had these from the factory, every time it would flex, these running boards would come up because they're a little flimsy and would actually push the body clips out, and I lost quite a few body clips. So what I did was I went in here and took took the running boards and actually moved them out so that they would clear, and you can just loosen up a couple screws here and they'll slide in and out. I actually brought them out just a little bit, enough to clear away from that body so I'm not having any more problems. Now they're very flimsy, but once they get in the body, they're pretty secure. Now the last thing I did was move my suspension. So the suspension, when it comes stuck, you've got, if you look real close at your clawback, you might make it here, you've got 3 holes back here and 3 holes up here for your suspension. Now the suspension on this truck is insanely stiff. I mean, it is like honestly way too stiff. If I ever figure out, I might actually at some point try to get an extra set of springs and cut them and make lighter, cut them and stretch them and make lighter springs for them or something, because these are just way too heavy for a crawler. Now, if you leave them in the stock positions, the shock's basically going straight up, you're only going to get about this much articulation before it starts pulling the other wheel off. Now, what I've got now is with the shocks moved, now I've got it in the first of the front 3 holes. Now you do get a lot more body roll, but now I can actually articulate this truck all the way up, you know, before it starts, it twists like crazy now. Now what I might do in the future is actually move this shock, drill another hole halfway between, like right there, and see if I can sort of get best of both worlds so it doesn't have as much body roll and it still has a good amount of articulation. That's probably the next thing I will do, is that mod right there. So that's the suspension modded. Now, if you run them, if you want to keep them run straight up, I suggest you back these adjustment collars all the way up, take all the preload you can out of them. Right now, I've got about 1 finger of preload in them, so it just doesn't, every time you turn it, it just, you know, is top heavy like crazy. It actually handles pretty well right now, especially with that spare tire off of it. And obviously you can adjust your body post. Another thing I did was actually move my bumpers in slightly from the factory. They were way out. I actually slid them in, I think, 2 holes from stock. Here's the body shell. Like I said, here's the LED bar I was talking about. You know, getting all this out of the center here and maybe drilling in and mounting a couple of LED, maybe 4 or 5 inch bars up here or something like that, or mounting some buckets in here or something and putting some kind of lights in it. Up here at the front, I've been looking around at a couple of square, I've looked at a couple of square light pods. What I may do is actually go in here and super glue something or shoe glue something into the top so I can mount that light bucket hanging down, sort of poking out the front, Dremel this out, and just fabricate some kind of custom light to go in the front right here to make my front, and then, you know, kind of do the same thing in the back for my tail lights. And in the inside, you've got this bulkhead right here. You can just cut a hole right there and pop your wires through. One thing I might do after I do the lighting kit is actually Gorilla Tape the inside of this body, or I might spray Flex Seal in it, because this body probably would be prone to cracking if, you know, you hit something with it hard enough. So I may actually go ahead and Flex Seal that body up. That might be one of the future mods I do, and we'll talk about any future mods I do in another video. The next time you guys see this truck, it will be modded on the inside. I have just ordered a new ESC for it, and I'll tell you guys why in a second. This ESC it comes with, I mean, it works, but it's junk. It's a 2 or 3S, but I do not run this truck on 3S, and I will tell you that right now why. This truck has a great controller. It handles really well, but the main problem with this rig is you can't adjust the brakes, the punch, nothing. It's a very basic ESC. And when you let off the gas, you know, when you're on your transmitter and when you hit neutral, it goes 100% full force drag brake, and it literally just stops in its tracks. So on 2S, it's not a big deal. Now, motor on axle with this, you've got your, it's kind of plastic gears and axles in there, and you can snap axles in these if you overpower them. If you put it on 3S, it's not that much faster. You get a little bit more power. It's a little more drivable and climbable, and you get a little more wheel speed out of it, which is good. But the problem is when you let off the throttle with it on 3S, you literally, I mean, it's like a hammer hitting. I mean, you just hear the entire drive line just bang, you know, just stopping. So what I have done is ordered a Hobby Wing 880, I believe it is. Yes, the 880 dual brushed ESC. It is 15 levelable, programmable. You can adjust punch, throttle initiation speed, brake initiation speed, drag brake, all that. You can adjust all the parameters of it. You know, how hard your drag brake hits, how hard your brakes hit, how linear your brakes hit, how linear the throttle takes off. You know, all that. So you can adjust all kinds of, you can adjust throttle level of how much power it will actually put out. So you can calm it down at that. So, you know, ordered the Hobby Wing ESC and the LED program card for it, and we're gonna switch that out. Now when I get my Spectrum DX5 radio in, we'll bind it, we'll put a new receiver in this and bind it to the DX5 when it comes in. And then the other thing I might change, I have not decided on this yet, is I may switch out the motors. I know OMGRC put Gen 8 Redcat motors in his and got his up to about 11 mile an hour. I'm not really concerned about speed. I more want wheel speed for rock crawling and stuff like that if I need to get up and over something, and torque to get the motor going so it's not straining it so much. I don't want really speed at takeoff. I want more, you know, just able to pull the truck. I'm actually emailed Holmes Hobbies about maybe putting some of their puller motors or something in this. I think that's their brushed ones. But I may pick up some 550 can. I'm not sure what turn to get. I'm thinking maybe 21 turn motors. I think these are factory 41. I might get some 21 turn motors for it. And we'll see how that works out. Maybe, you know, and we'll switch those out and see how we do. But so far, I'm really liking the Redcat. Like I said, I'm going to switch out the ESC, maybe switch the motors, a few other little things like that. I might modify the battery box here. I cannot stand this little battery hold-down clip with these body clips in it. Can't stand it, so I may actually take that battery tray out when I do the ESC and actually mod this up to just run battery straps, you know, stuff like that, because you are limited on how thick a battery you can run on this. So I may change that out in the near future, mod that. See, they do make an aluminum setup for this. I don't think I'm going to go that far with it. But as of right now, guys, that is that's the Redcat Clawback as it stands now. I still recommend this truck. Like I said, you're going to have to tinker with it. It's not perfect, but you got to ask yourself this: who the hell else makes a fifth scale crawler? RC 4-wheel drive discontinued the killer crawler, but that was a kit you had to buy, and by the time it was said and done, you had about $1,500. It was probably the baddest crawler you could ever possibly buy. But you know, you could buy 3 of these for what that thing cost. So you know, I think it's cool if you're really into crawlers, really into fifth scale big trucks. I think it's cool to have in your arsenal if you got room for it. I dig it. I would buy it again. Yeah. So we'll go from there, guys. So catch you guys on the next one. Take it easy.